On Christmas night, my son stood up and said, "You're no longer welcome in this family." I handed him an envelope and said, "My parting gift." The moment they opened it, the room exploded into chaos. My son clinked his fork against his wine glass at 8:47 p.m. on Christmas night and said, "Dad, I need to say something. You're no longer part of this family." The tree lights kept twinkling. Bing Crosby kept singing from the speaker. The turkey I'd brought, a 23-pound organic bird from the fancy butcher because Karen only liked the good stuff, sat half-carved on the table. My two grandkids, Emma and Jake, 7 and 5, stared at their plates like they could disappear into the mashed potatoes. And my daughter-in-law, Karen, smiled, actually smiled, like she'd just opened the exact present she'd been hoping for. "We've been discussing this for months," Marcus continued. "My son, my only child, 34 years old, wearing the cashmere sweater I'd bought him for his birthday. You're toxic. You're controlling. It's affecting our family dynamic. It's time for you to leave and give us space." Toxic, controlling. I sat very still, hands folded in my lap, face neutral. The same face I'd worn through 18 months of chemo with my wife Linda. The same face I'd worn at her funeral 6 years ago when Marcus had been too devastated to give the eulogy, so I'd done it instead. "Marcus," I said quietly, "what brought this on?" Karen leaned forward. She was 32, blonde, the kind of put-together that costs money I'd helped provide through the years. "What brought this on is that you're suffocating us. You have been for years. We need to establish healthy boundaries. I visit twice a month. I call on Sundays. Is that suffocating?" "It's not about frequency," she said, her voice taking on that therapist tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "It's about energy. Your presence is just draining. Right, Marcus?" Marcus nodded, wouldn't look at me, just nodded like a puppet. I'd paid for his college education, $47,000 at UC San Diego, paid it in full so he'd graduate without debt. I'd co-signed the loan on this house, the 4-bedroom in Pasadena, with the good schools, because his credit score was 580, and the bank had laughed him out of the building. I'd given him $80,000 to start his consulting business when every bank said no and every investor passed. "But sure, toxic. You hover," Karen continued, warming to her subject now. "You have opinions about everything. How we raise the kids, how we spend our money, how we run our business. It's exhausting. I offered advice when you asked for it. We didn't ask for it. You just give it, constantly." I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, tried to find the little boy who'd cried in my arms when his mother died, the teenager who'd stayed up late helping me sort through Linda's things because he knew I couldn't do it alone, the young man who'd said at her funeral, "I don't know how to do life without Mom. Promise, you'll always be there." I'd promised. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. "This is Karen's idea, isn't it?" I asked. Marcus stiffened. "It's our decision." "No," Karen snapped, dropping the reasonable act. "It's the right decision. You've had your claws in him long enough, Robert. He needs to be his own man." Claws, like I was some kind of parasite instead of the father who'd raised him alone after Linda died, who'd worked double shifts at the engineering firm so he could do travel, soccer, and debate club, and college application fees. Emma started crying, quiet little sobs. Jake put his arm around her. "Can we go to our room?" Emma whispered. "Not yet," Karen said sharply. "This is a family moment. You need to understand what's happening. A family moment. Jesus Christ. I should have been surprised, should have been blindsided, but I wasn't, because I'd seen this coming for years. Karen had started dating Marcus 8 years ago. She'd been sweet at first, grateful when I helped them with rent during a rough month, thankful when I paid for their wedding $32,000 for a small, intimate ceremony that somehow required a 4-tier cake and a live band. But something had shifted after they had Emma. Suddenly my visits were unexpected. My gifts were too much. My presence was stressful. She'd started making comments, little digs. Marcus's father is very involved. We're trying to give the kids space from outside influences. Marcus needs to learn to make decisions without running to daddy. I'd ignored it, told myself it was new parent stress, that she was just protective, that it would pass. It didn't pass. It got worse. 2 years ago, I'd offered to help them hire a bookkeeper for the business. They'd been drowning in paperwork, missing quarterly tax filings, getting penalty notices. Karen had exploded, accused me of thinking they were incompetent, of trying to control their company, of treating Marcus like a child. I'd apologized, backed off, let them handle it themselves. They'd nearly gone bankrupt. The IRS had filed a lien. The business account had been frozen. Marcus had called me at 2 a.m., crying, asking for help. I'd paid off their tax debt, $43,000. Karen never thanked me, just said they would have figured it out eventually. Last year, I'd missed Emma's birthday party because I had the flu. Karen had called Marcus in front of me. I was at their house, dropping off Emma's present, and said, "See, he can't even prioritize his own granddaughter. He'd rather stay home than celebrate her." I was running a 103-degree fever. Marcus knew that. He didn't correct her. That's when I started to understand. Karen didn't just dislike me. She wanted me gone, and she was slowly, methodically, turning my son against me. 6 months ago, I'd been at their house, fixing a leaky pipe in the kitchen. Marcus had asked for help, said they couldn't afford a plumber right then. Karen had been on the phone in the next room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The walls were just thin. Once the old man's gone, everything comes to us anyway, she'd said, casual, matter of fact, like she was discussing the weather, the house in Arcadia, the investment accounts, everything. Might as well speed up the process. If we cut him off now, make it clear we don't need him, maybe the stress will, kill me. She meant maybe the stress would kill me. I don't know, her sister had said. On the other end, I could hear the speakerphone. That seems cold. He's 72. It's not like he's got decades left anyway. And honestly, Marcus is miserable. His dad treats him like he's still 12. We'd all be better off. I'd stood there in their kitchen, wrench in hand, water dripping from the pipe, and felt something I'd never felt toward my son's wife before. Rage. Pure, cold, clarifying rage. I'd finished fixing the pipe, left without saying goodbye. Drove home to my house, the paid-off house in Arcadia that Linda and I had bought in 1985, and sat in my car for an hour. Then I'd called my lawyer. Gerald Hoffman had been my attorney for 23 years, handled my estate planning after Linda died, helped me navigate some contract disputes at work before I retired, witnessed the trust documents I'd set up for Marcus's future. Gerald, I'd said when he answered, I need your help with something complicated. What's going on, Robert? My daughter-in-law is trying to kill me. Excuse me? Not literally. Not yet, anyway. But she wants me dead, or at least gone, and I need to prepare for what's coming. We'd met the next day. I'd told him everything. The gradual alienation, the manipulation, the overheard conversation. My concerns that Karen was poisoning my relationship with my son and grandchildren. She's positioning herself to inherit everything, I'd said, and she's convinced Marcus that I'm the problem, that I'm controlling and toxic and in the way. Gerald had been quiet for a long moment. What do you want to do? I want to protect myself, legally, financially. I want to make sure that if she pushes me out, and I think she will, I'm not left vulnerable. And Marcus? Marcus is an adult. He's making his choices, but I'm not going to let him make those choices with my resources. Gerald had pulled out a legal pad, started taking notes. Tell me about the house they live in. That's when we'd started untangling the web. The house in Pasadena. I'd provided the down payment, $68,000, because Marcus and Karen had zero savings and terrible credit. The mortgage was in their names, but the down payment had been structured through a family trust I'd established in 2015, a trust I controlled, a trust that had specific provisions about reclaiming assets if the beneficiary violated certain terms. What terms? Gerald had written them, very carefully, very specifically. Terms about maintaining family relationships, about good faith participation in family dynamics, about not engaging in elder abuse or financial exploitation. Karen had no idea those terms existed. Marcus had signed the trust documents without reading them. I'd told him it was standard estate planning stuff, tax optimization. He'd trusted me. The business loan, Gerald had said. Tell me about that. I'd given Marcus $80,000 4 years ago to start his consulting company. He'd called it a gift. I'd called it a loan in my documentation. Not because I ever intended to collect. I'd planned to forgive it when he was more established, but I'd kept the paperwork. The promissory note Marcus had signed. The terms that said if he defaulted on any payments to his business creditors, the note became due immediately. Last year, when the IRS froze their accounts, Marcus had defaulted on his small business loan. Technically, I could have called in the full $80,000 plus interest. I hadn't. I'd waited. The savings gifts, Gerald said, reading through my records. Jesus, Robert. You've given them over $120,000 in the past 6 years. They needed help. Help is one thing. This is life support. He'd looked up at me. Did you document any of this? All of it. Every check. Every bank transfer. Every Venmo. I kept everything. Gerald had smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then, we have options. We'd spent the next 6 months building a case that would never see a courtroom because I didn't want to sue my son. I wanted him to understand, truly understand, what he was giving up. We'd reviewed the trust documents, amended certain provisions, made sure every asset, every loan, every gift was properly documented and legally recoverable. We'd transferred my house into a different trust, one Marcus wasn't a beneficiary of. We'd updated my will to remove Marcus and Karen entirely, redirecting everything to a charitable foundation in Linda's name. And we'd prepared an envelope, a thick manila envelope containing 6 months of legal work, copies of trust documents, loan agreements, payment records, formal notices of default, demand letters for repayment, updated estate plans, everything. When do you want to do this? Gerald had asked at our final meeting. I'll know when the time comes, when they make their move. And if they don't, I'd looked at him. They will. Karen won't stop until she gets what she wants. She thinks I'm weak, that I'll let them walk all over me because I love my son too much to fight back. And will you? I love my son more than anything, but I love myself enough not to be destroyed. Now, sitting at this Christmas table, listening to Karen explain why I was toxic, I reached into my jacket pocket. I understand, I said calmly. If that's your decision, I'll respect it. Karen's eyes narrowed. She'd expected a fight, expected tears, or anger, or desperate pleading. My calm was throwing her off. Good, she said carefully. We're glad you're being mature about this. Of course, you're adults. You get to make adult choices. I pulled out the envelope. But before I go, here's my parting gift. I placed it on the table. Thick, heavy, official looking. Karen snatched it before Marcus could move. She was always greedy, probably expecting a check. One final payout from the old man she was kicking to the curb. Maybe a nice round number. 50,000. 100,000. Please forgive me for being such a burden gesture. She tore it open. The first document was a letter on law firm letterhead. Hoffman and Associates. She started reading. Her face went from smug to confused to white in about 5 seconds. What? She looked up at me. What is this? Marcus grabbed the papers from her hands, started reading. His hands began to shake. Dad, what did you do? I took a sip of wine. Let it breathe. Let the moment stretch. You wanted me out of the family. I'm simply honoring your request. Emma and Jake were staring now, not understanding but sensing the shift in the room, the way the air had changed. Marcus was flipping through pages frantically. This says you're calling in the house down payment? Not calling it in, reclaiming it. The trust that funded your down payment has specific provisions about family relationships and elder respect. You violated those provisions. The trust is revoking its support. But this is our house. Actually, I said calmly. Check page 4, section 3.2. The trust holds a contingent interest in the property. If the beneficiary violates the terms which you have, the trust can execute its claim. That's not legal. It absolutely is. Gerald Hoffman, 31 years practicing estate law, structured it that way specifically. You signed the documents in 2019. Didn't read them, did you? Karen's hands were shaking now. You can't do this. You're trying to blackmail us. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm doing it. Keep reading. Marcus found the next section. His face crumbled. The business loan. The $80,000 I gave you, which you called a gift, which I documented as a loan, with your signature. I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, showed him a picture of the promissory note. You defaulted when the IRS froze your accounts last year. The terms state that any default makes the full amount due immediately, plus interest at 6% APR. Marcus was doing the math. That's over $90,000 now. $93,460 to be exact. Payment due within 90 days. There's a formal demand letter in the envelope. Karen stood up so fast her chair fell backward. You son of a bitch. You planned this. You've been planning this for 6 months. Yes. Since when? She was screaming now. How could you? Since I overheard you on the phone with your sister in June, talking about how everything would come to you once the old man's gone, discussing how my stress might speed up the process. Marcus's head snapped up. What? Ask your wife about that conversation, Marcus. About how she wanted me dead so you could inherit faster. I never, Karen started. You did. June 14th, 2:37 p.m. I was fixing your kitchen sink. You were on speakerphone with Lisa. I have a recording. That was a lie. I didn't have a recording, but the look on Karen's face told me I didn't need one. Marcus turned to her. Karen, tell me he's lying. It wasn't like that. I was just venting. I didn't mean, you hoped I'd die. I said it softly, without accusation, just fact, so my son could have my money without the inconvenience of having me around. The room went completely silent. Even the Christmas music had ended. Just the sound of Emma crying and Karen's harsh breathing. There's more, I said. Keep reading. Marcus flipped to the next document. The savings accounts? Every penny I've given you over the years. $123,000 in gifts since 2018. All documented. All with written notes about being temporary support or bridge funding or emergency assistance. I'd been very careful about my wording. I'm not demanding repayment on those, but I am documenting them for tax purposes and potential fraud investigation. Fraud? You've been claiming your business income on your tax returns, but you've failed to report my financial support as income. That's potentially fraudulent. The IRS might be interested. Gerald had been very clear that this was a gray area, that it probably wouldn't result in actual charges, but the threat was enough. And finally, I said, page 12, my updated estate planning documents. You and Karen have been removed as beneficiaries from my will, my trusts, and my investment accounts. Everything now goes to the Linda Morrison Foundation for Cancer Research. Linda, my wife, Marcus's mother, the woman who'd loved our son more than life itself, the woman whose name Karen had forbidden in their house because it made her uncomfortable. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. You're cutting me out. You cut me out first. I'm just making it legal. But Mom would have wanted, your mother would have wanted you to honor your family, to treat the people who sacrificed for you with respect, to not let your wife scheme to kill your father for inheritance money. I didn't know, Marcus's voice cracked. I didn't know she said that, but you knew she was pushing me away. You knew she was poisoning our relationship, and you let her. You chose her comfort over my presence. So now, you get to live with that choice. Karen grabbed the papers from Marcus. This is illegal. All of this. We'll sue. We'll fight this. Go ahead. The number for Hoffman and Associates is on the letterhead. Gerald would love to hear from you, but I should warn you, litigation is expensive. And since I'm calling in your business loan and you're about to lose your house, I'm not sure you can afford it. Her face went from white to red. You vindictive old bastard. Probably, but I'm a vindictive old bastard who still has his house and his money and his dignity. Can you say the same? Marcus was staring at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Dad, please, we can fix this. We can talk about it. I'll talk to Karen. We'll work it out. Work what out, Marcus? The fact that your wife wanted me dead? The fact that you just stood up at Christmas dinner and told me I'm no longer part of your family? Those aren't things you work out. Those are things you live with. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was so wrong. You were. And you'll be even sorrier in about 45 days when you have to vacate the property. That's how long you have. It's in the notice. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. I'm not part of your family, remember? You made that very clear. I stood up, buttoned my jacket. The same jacket Linda had bought me for our 40th anniversary. The last gift she'd given me before the cancer took her. The business accounts are frozen, pending the loan repayment. I continued, my voice steady, professional. Your credit cards, the ones I'm listed as a co-signer on, are being closed effective tomorrow. The joint savings account we opened for Emma and Jake's college fund remains intact. That's for them, not you. But you don't have access to it anymore. I've established myself as the sole trustee until they're 18. You can't do this to your grandchildren. I'm not doing anything to my grandchildren. I'm protecting them from their parents' financial mismanagement. The money will be there when they need it. If you're still in their lives by then, Emma was full-on sobbing now. Jake looked terrified. I wanted to go to them, to hold them, to tell them Grandpa loved them, and none of this was their fault. But I couldn't, not anymore. Marcus grabbed my arm. Dad, please don't do this. I'll fix it. I'll make Karen apologize. We'll start over. Just don't take everything away. I looked at his hand on my arm, looked at his face, saw the little boy again, saw the teenager, saw every version of my son I'd loved and raised and sacrificed for, and I saw the man who'd chosen his wife's cruelty over his father's love. You don't get to have it both ways, I said quietly. You don't get to kick me out and keep my money. You don't get to call me toxic and then beg for my help. You made a choice tonight. Live with it. Karen made me. Karen didn't make you do anything. You're a grown man. Every time you let her push me away, that was your choice. Every time you didn't defend me, that was your choice. Every time you chose her comfort over my presence, that was your choice. You don't get to blame her now. Karen was crying now too. Angry, frustrated tears. You're destroying our family. Your family destroyed itself. I'm just refusing to pay for the damage anymore. I pulled my arm free from Marcus's grip, walked toward the door. Behind me, the room erupted. Karen screaming at Marcus. Marcus shouting back. Emma and Jake wailing. The sound of papers scattering as someone swept them off the table. Merry Christmas, I said, without turning around. And goodbye. I stepped out into the cold December air. The temperature had dropped to 43 degrees. My breath fogged in front of me. Down the street, other houses glowed with warm Christmas lights. I could hear laughter from one, music from another. Normal families having normal holidays. I got into my car, a 2019 Toyota Camry, paid in full, and sat there for a moment. My hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was wearing off. In its place was something else. Not regret. Not quite satisfaction either. Grief, maybe, for the relationship I'd thought I had. For the son I'd thought I'd raised. My phone buzzed. Text messages started flooding in. Marcus. Dad, please don't do this. Marcus. I'm sorry. Marcus. We can work this out. Karen. You're going to regret this. Karen. We have rights. Karen. Our lawyer will be in touch. I blocked both their numbers. Then I called Gerald. How did it go? He asked. About as expected. Lot of screaming. Some begging. The usual threats about lawyers. Do you think they'll actually fight it? No, they can't afford to. And they know everything is documented. Marcus isn't stupid. Just weak. I'm sorry, Robert. I know this isn't what you wanted. No, but it's what I needed. I started the car. I'm going home. Merry Christmas, Gerald. Merry Christmas. Call me if they contact you directly. I drove home to Arcadia, to the house Linda and I had bought almost 40 years ago. The house where we'd raised Marcus, where we'd had Christmas mornings and birthday parties and graduation celebrations, where Linda had died in our bed, with me holding her hand. The house was quiet, dark. I turned on the lights, looked at the Christmas tree I'd put up by myself this year, at the ornaments Linda and I had collected over decades of marriage, at the photo on the mantle of the three of us from Marcus's college graduation. We looked happy. We had been happy. I sat down in my chair, Linda's favorite reading chair that I'd kept exactly where she'd always placed it, and let myself feel it. All of it. The anger, and the grief, and the betrayal, and the loss. Then I poured myself 3 fingers of Scotch Macallan, 18, Linda's favorite, and made a toast to the empty room. We did our best, I said to her photo. Didn't we? The next 6 weeks were hell. Marcus called from different numbers, friends' phones, work phones, random numbers. I didn't answer. He showed up at my house twice. I didn't open the door. He sent letters. I returned them unopened. Karen tried a different approach. She had Emma and Jake make me cards, had them call from her phone saying they missed Grandpa. I listened to those voicemails once, heard their little voices asking when I was coming over, asking if they'd done something wrong. It took everything I had not to call back. back, but I didn't, because I knew what would happen. I'd call to talk to the kids. Karen would get on the phone, would promise anything, would say they'd go to counseling, would say it was all a misunderstanding, would say whatever it took to maintain access to my money. And then, 6 months later, we'd be right back here. Gerald handled all communication. Marcus's lawyer, some guy who'd passed the bar 3 years ago, sent demand letters claiming elder abuse and undue influence. Gerald sent back our documentation. The demands stopped. The bank foreclosed on their house in week 7. They'd missed 3 mortgage payments before Christmas, apparently. The down payment reclamation was just the final nail. I heard through a neighbor that they'd moved into an apartment in Glendale, 2 bedrooms. Marcus had to sell his Tesla. Karen was working retail at a mall. Their business collapsed. Without my financial backing, without good credit, without the ability to pay their vendors on time, clients started walking. By February, they'd filed for bankruptcy. The bankruptcy trustee contacted Gerald about the $93,000 loan. Gerald provided all documentation. The trustee agreed it was a legitimate debt. It would be discharged in the bankruptcy, but Marcus's credit was destroyed for the next 7 years. I felt nothing watching it happen, just a distant observation, like watching a building collapse that you'd seen the cracks in for years. Inevitable, predictable. In March, Marcus sent one final letter, handwritten, not opened by Gerald first. He'd mailed it to my home address. Asterisk, Dad. Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this, but I need to say it. Asterisk. Asterisk. You were right about everything. Karen was poisoning me against you. She did want you gone, and I let her. I chose her comfort over your presence. I chose money over integrity. I chose the easy path of agreeing with her instead of standing up for you. Asterisk. Asterisk. I was weak. I am weak. Asterisk. Asterisk. We're divorced. Karen left me 3 weeks ago. Said she couldn't be with someone who lost everything. Apparently, I was only valuable when I had access to your money. I should have seen it. You saw it. I didn't. Asterisk. Asterisk. Emma and Jake ask about you every day. I tell them Grandpa is busy, but they know. Kids always know. Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if it can be fixed, but I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Asterisk. Asterisk. I love you. I know I don't deserve to say that, but it's true. Asterisk. Asterisk. Marcus. Asterisk. I read it 3 times, put it in a drawer, didn't respond.